Welcome back to another week, everybody. We are on episode 20 of Banter from the Bench podcast. We have actually some really fun topics to dive into today. We saw an all-star game like we've never seen before with the NHL switching things up with four nations. Definitely want to dive into that. We're going to talk about kind of where the NFL season is right now. Obviously, the Super Bowl's done. We've got the Combine coming up. There still seems to be some movement that's going to happen here before the draft. And then spring training's about to start, so we'll make sure to dive into that. So let's get ready to roll.
Soundstripe.
Glad to be back here for another episode this week. Now, if you'll notice, Kevin's wearing his Miami hat. I am also wearing a Florida shirt and a Florida hat, and only one of us is going to be happy at the end of this weekend, and that is going to be me. Florida and Miami are playing in baseball starting on Friday, and Florida is going to take Miami out to the woodshed, give them a good old spanking, and the rest will be history. So, unplanned, but both figure we were repping our teams. I'm also getting ready for March Madness. I don't know about you, Kevin. I don't know where the Hurricanes are sitting.
What, you don't think we're gonna make it? So we don't think we're gonna make it sitting at like 5-20?
Hey, win the ACC tournament and you'll be in. That's all you got to do. But a lot of good stuff to talk about this week. So we'll go ahead and dive in. And probably the biggest thing since we last talked was Four Nations Face-Off concluded. And I don't know how much of it you watched. I watched as much as I could. I believe I watched all but one USA game. I just didn't tune into their final regular season game, we'll call it, after they clinched a spot in the championship game. But, I mean, overall, I think the NHL did something that was really, really, really awesome. I think it had a lot of people talking about hockey that normally don't. It kind of seemed like hockey was at the center of the sports world for about 2 weeks there, which never really happens minus the Stanley Cup and maybe a little bit of the NHL playoffs too. But overall, just was a really competitive tournament. Canada won. They beat USA 3-2 in overtime to win the tournament. But it was awesome. I enjoyed it. Definitely would have liked to see USA win. But, you know, we got Canada once in the tournament, so I guess we'll take that too. What were your thoughts on Four Nations Face-Off?
Listen, I thought the NHL absolutely nailed it with their version of All-Star Weekend, and I kind of hope that they do this every year because I feel like everybody in the nation was tuning in some form or another, depending on how much hockey you actually watch and how much you know about the NHL players. Me, I kind of fall somewhere in the middle, but I thought it was an awesome way to spend All-Star Weekend. I thought the games were extremely competitive. It honestly felt like a Stanley Cup playoff game. So I loved seeing that from like an All-Star Weekend because you don't get that with any other sport right now. So A+ to the NHL, they absolutely killed it.
Yeah, it was very competitive. And you know, one of the first things I was going to be keeping an eye on once the tournament started was like how invested are the players going to be, you know, because it is a break for them, so they're missing out on that. You know, I'm sure most of them would have loved to be able to sit back on a beach for a few days or a little bit and just kind of recharge before they head back to their teams. But, you know, a lot of these guys got a little early taste of what a playoff hockey atmosphere is like. I know Montreal really showed up for the games they had out there, and I've heard the atmosphere in Boston was unbelievable for the championship game too. So yeah, it's just really cool. It is going to be coming back. They're going to be doing a best on best tournament every few years. Next up, we have the Olympics coming up in Italy. I believe that's next summer. Or next winter, I think. So we'll get it is winter. So we'll get that coming up next. So we'll get a little more action here for the guys battling for their countries. But I think it was cool, and I don't know, I don't know if you had a chance to watch the first USA Canada game, but I think maybe the peak of the whole tournament was 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of that game. Yeah. Matthew and Brady Tkachuk, the two brothers for Team USA, both fighting early on, and they had some mic'd up moments where it was cool. It was just like two of the boys just, not even really realizing what just happened, but kind of talking through it as they were both in the penalty box. Like, I believe it was Matthew was in there first, and then Brady was going into the penalty box, and Matthew was pounding on the glass, and then he asked Brady, he was like, how was my fight? And Brady was like, oh, it was unbelievable, or it was unreal. And it was just kind of cool having them mic'd up at that moment. And, definitely had a lot of people talking. And then I think it ended up being about over 16 million people that ended up tuning into that championship game, which is one of the, if not the highest viewership for a hockey game ever. So, NHL's on the come up, and hockey's on the come up right now. And I think that kind of leads us into our next segment here where, speaking on, you think, oh, we're coming down off this Four Nations face-off tournament. How the hell are we going to keep people entertained? Well, that's Alexander Ovechkin. He's closing in on Wayne Gretzky's scoring record, which truthfully seemed like it was going to be something that was going to be unbeatable or unbreakable. Ovi's got 883 goals right now. He needs 11 more to tie Gretzky's total of 894. The Capitals have 24 games left. Ovi, since coming back from this break and kind of leaning into it, almost playing like a man possessed that wants to break the record this year. He's got 4 goals in his last 2 games, so 24 games to get 11 to tie it or 12 to break it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it's a lot of goals you're going to have to be scoring, but with the way he's playing and just the sniper that he is, it doesn't seem too unreachable this year. What do you think? You think he's going to be able to break it this year?
As long as he can stay healthy, because he's definitely had injury stints over the course of his career, and honestly, when you play as long as
he was hurt this year.
Yeah, when you've played as long as he's played, you're bound to get hurt. But I think as long as he stays healthy, I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the rest of the team, the Capitals, just kind of rally around that and just try and get him some good looks as often as they can. So I'll say yes. Has there been any indication that this is his final season? Did they say
No.
if he doesn't do it,
He'll come back. He'll do it.
Okay.
Whether it's this year or next year.
Okay. So it's not as pressing, but yeah, I think he'll end up doing it.
I think so too. And kind of one interesting thing, I was just scrolling through their schedule and looking at some of the teams they had coming up. The Blackhawks are in that 24 game span, roughly around game 18. So that could potentially be the team he breaks it against, which,
hell yeah.
I mean, be a part of history. That's something for us, even though it had nothing to do with the Blackhawks. But yeah. So I'm like, that'd be fun if we can watch the Hawks and watch them break history in the same game. They'll put it on national TV and everyone would be able to see how shitty we are. So it'll be good.
Speaking of national TV, and quite the opposite, actually, not a lot of people tuning in. At least this is what I'm assuming. NBA All-Star Game. Did you watch any of it at all? Did you watch any All-Star Weekend? I was bartending an event for the dunk contest and 3-pointer, so I didn't watch that. But I was not working the next night, and I tuned into 0 minutes of the All-Star Game.
I'm a little sucker for Saturday night of the All-Star Weekend for the NBA. I kind of just like the skills 3-point dunk contest stuff. It just, I don't know, I feel like it's the most entertaining thing that they offer. But with that being said, it's gotten so bad over the last handful of years that I'm really losing interest in even that. I mean, you look at the skills competition, the Spurs literally punted on it. And that just why even do it if it's getting to that point? 3-point contest is a 3-point contest. Tyler Hero won. I mean, can't really do much there. It just kind of is what it is, whether, it's entertaining and it's close or it's not. This one was pretty close. Had a lot of guys that did pretty well. And then the dunk contest. It's just getting bad. Matis Buzelis was a part of it. He's a Bulls rookie. He couldn't even finish a dunk in the first attempt and didn't even try to. You automatically get like I think it's a 40 if you don't dunk. I don't think that should be the case. You should get like a 0 or something, but like he could have just went up and did like a standard two-handed slam if he wanted to, but he chose not to. Another guy, I can't think of who it is off the top of my head. He was struggling with finishing a dunk.
Was it Andre Jackson? Is that?
It probably was, yeah, yep. But then it was really just Stephon Castle and Mac McClung that were going at it, and Mac McClung won again. People are going to say what they want to say about him being a G League player and winning these dunk contests, but until NBA stars step up and do the dunk contests, like you can't really say much, in my opinion. Whether he should be allowed to compete in it or not, I guess that's however you want to interpret it, but he's at least made it somewhat watchable. So yeah, that was kind of my thing I was looking forward to, but it ended up kind of being a bust. As far as the actual All-Star game goes, I watched the first game and that was it. I don't care for it. I feel like the players don't really care for it too. It's just getting shots up and then, not even really playing defense until it matters. And I don't know, just give them a freaking break. Like they would rather have that, I think.
Yeah, I think it's clear at this point. They don't really. It's more just like a let's go hang out with my dudes type of thing for them than like let's actually go and compete and like make this entertaining. Yeah. So,
and like the whole like LeBron was out for it. Like, why didn't you say anything ahead of time and let someone else get a spot on that team that deserved it? And then Anthony Edwards was out too. No one knew why he wasn't playing until like in the middle of the game he was supposed to be playing in. He was listed as a starter on the broadcast, and then he just never played, and no one could figure out why. And turns out he had a groin issue. Like, I'm sure that was known ahead of time too. Like, what are we doing here?
It's all because the stuff is built into their contracts, dude. Like, they make money off being all-stars, which like is fine and great, but like
LeBron don't need it.
Yeah, and you could have given other guys chances to actually like put on a show. So I think that's enough NBA talk. And there's not really a whole lot going on right now. Obviously, you're still a little ways away from the playoffs, so we'll get closer to the playoffs and we'll start talking.
Cavs look good.
Yeah, and they have for a while.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little NFL here. I think there's quite a few stories which are pretty interesting for this week. So one that just came out within the last few hours, actually. Starting next season. I don't know if that means this coming season or the following, but they said starting next season, NFL is expected to replace first down chains with a Hawkeye virtual measuring system. Chains are going to be used as a backup. I think that this is very similar to the like automated strike zone for baseball, right? Like it could be good, it could be bad. I don't really know what this is going to do for the game. I think it's going to hold the game to be like more honest, but we'll see. I think it's a wait and see type of thing. How do you feel about this?
I don't think it's really going to change much because in my opinion, the chains aren't the problem, it's the spot of the ball. So like if the refs are still going to be spotting it, it still might be short just based off where they spot it, or it might not be. So I mean, technology's kind of taken over the sports world, or starting to at least, like you mentioned with the automatic ball strike system. Not technology related, but we're seeing different leagues incorporate different things into the game, like college baseball is using an additional outside base for runners this year, like you would see normally in softball. College baseball's adapted that. So leagues and teams are always trying to find new ways to kind of stay up to date with things, or I guess in the baseball example, make the game safer. Not that matters for what we're talking about here, but it's just the NFL trying things. I think it's smart. I think if you can eliminate the spotting issue that comes with it too, but who knows how they would be able to do that. But I guess a virtual measuring system could probably be a little bit more accurate than trying to wrestle some chains together. So we'll see how it goes, but NFL's just trying to keep up with the times, I guess.
Yeah, it's hard because it's like, was the guy's knee down, elbow down? Like it's really hard to get that accurate using technology, but something to watch. Now, this storyline actually originated, I think, right now is a couple weeks ago. But San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel has requested a trade. Of the teams that need wide receiver help, Sean, where can you see him going?
I can see him going to Pittsburgh. I feel like Pittsburgh has kind of been wanting to make a splashy receiver for a few years, and they really haven't. So I feel like they're due to make something happen here, and I feel like they're kind of trying to win. So I feel like he could be a good fit there. I'm sure Pickens will love not getting the ball as much. So
yeah, I could see that. Two teams come to mind for me. One of them, the Patriots, because they've got a shit ton of money to spend, and they just invested in their quarterback. Two, the other one that comes to mind for me would be the Chargers. They've already got Ladd McConkey, who obviously looks like a piece moving forward. They had a good season last year. They obviously need some wide receiver help. I don't know what their draft compensation looks like or how much they've traded away recently, but I could see the Chargers going after a guy like Deebo too, and then he'd get to be out in LA. So you go from San Francisco to LA. Not too bad, man.
no.
I'd love to
Cincinnati?
say, yeah, I think it depends on the T. Higgins situation, right?
Yeah.
Like if T. Higgins is gone and he goes elsewhere, then I could definitely see that.
Be kind of weird. I don't think I'd get used to seeing him in a Bengals jersey.
Yeah, that would be weird. I also kind of like. It depends on how the Titans approach the number one overall pick, but like if they go and get their quarterback, I could see the Titans trying to make a move for Deebo because it'd be pretty nice to pair him with Cam Ward.
Or Shador.
Well, Shador's not going 1-1. Titans.
You never know.
Dude, there's no way. I could see Abdul Carter going 1-1 over Shador, but yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting, man. Just when you think like, oh yeah, these would be like the 3 to 5 teams that make a lot of sense for Deebo, he ends up going to like the Chiefs. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's how this always works. So we'll see.
Maybe they need a
Baltimore.
receiver.
Yeah, Baltimore could make sense. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Jets actually have informed Aaron Rodgers that they plan to move in a different direction, and they did it in a way that I've never seen before in the history of the NFL. They announced it over social media. For how rocky the last 2 seasons have looked for Rodgers, do you think his time is done? Do you think he just maybe hangs up the cleats and calls it a career?
I think he's got another year or two in him, whether he's a starter or he just kind of starts transitioning towards the backup and eventually retiring. But I really only see one destination for him, and it's Pittsburgh again.
Yeah.
They're like, it makes a lot of sense for them because they're really trying to win now. And they don't really have a quarterback. We don't know if they're actually going to bring back one of Russ or Justin Fields. They've mentioned they would like to, but who knows if they actually will. So I kind of see Pittsburgh being one of the, if not the only fit for Rodgers at this point if he wants to be a starter. I mean, I guess you got Vegas too, but I don't think he'll want to go there.
I've got a team for you that I think could actually challenge this, and they've shown that they can be aggressive at times. Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
They said that they're going to make Anthony Richardson compete for the starting job. You bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers, I mean, you're going to pay him a lot of money. You can call it competing if you want, but like that could also be a really nice guy for Anthony Richardson to learn from. So I'll throw a dark horse in there, and I'll say the Colts. I don't think it's.
I would. Go ahead.
I don't think it's crazy likely, but I think it's definitely a possibility.
I would love to just sit and listen to those two have a conversation.
They wouldn't.
I would pay money to do that. I do have another thought on Rodgers too that it's a rumor and I don't think it makes sense at all, but I'll get into it later on because we're kind of going to touch on this team here shortly too.
Okay. Next quarterback that has been mentioned a lot in the media lately about potentially finding a new home as well, Matthew Stafford. The Rams announced that they're willing to explore options for Matthew Stafford. I think at this point he's probably just making too much money for them that they deem like worthy committing towards him as the future of their quarterback position. But this one I struggle with a lot. I have a hard time finding a home for Matthew Stafford. He's still a pretty damn good quarterback, but like he's going to be owed a lot of money. And I don't know do you know how old he is at this point?
He's old. That's how old he is.
That's a good number.
Yeah.
He's 37 years old. So, and he just turned 37 this February. So I don't know, man, if I'm going to just kind of throw something at the wall and see if it works. I agree. The Raiders, I honestly is like the only thing I can see making sense.
Yeah, I'm looking at the draft order here because I'm trying to like pinpoint who needs a quarterback but is out of the range to really be able to draft one. Raiders are in that mix. I think I've seen the rumor of the Giants. I don't like if Stafford's picking a destination. I can't say he will pick the Giants. I don't know who would. And now that I'm kind of looking at this would be hilarious. And this wasn't what I wanted to talk about, but the Jets could actually get Stafford. Like that would kind of make sense.
Yeah.
And then now just looking at this draft order, one kind of intriguing option. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but something to think about. Maybe the Saints.
Yeah, that's true too. I just wonder how appealing that is to him because they would finish 5-12. Yeah.
New head coach. It is offensive minded coach though. But then I mean you got to look at it from the Saints perspective too, which makes it tough is you're probably rostering Derek Carr and Stafford unless you can figure out a way to get rid of Carr. I don't know what his contract looks like, but it could be a potential hiccup in that. But I don't know. New Orleans is always that weird team where you're like, maybe they're not sold on winning, and then they just go like pull off some surprising moves. So
yeah, like being the last team to hire a head coach this offseason. If the Vikings didn't have JJ or like he had like some kind of issue with his surgery, I could totally see Minnesota going after Stafford and just airing it out constantly. But I think they're gonna turn the page to JJ this offseason, and they should. I mean, I think he'll be a nice piece for them. So, I mean, there's definitely gonna be a quarterback carousel, and I think even more so after the draft, or as the draft is happening. I think we'll see a lot of these pieces start to move. So that's all I have. Go ahead.
So one thing I wanted to bring up that I was going to talk about is I've heard Aaron Rodgers wants to go to the Rams, and he wants to go to the Rams with Davante Adams. Now, if I were the Rams, I would just keep Stafford at that point. Stafford right now is a much better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. So if they're looking at making this Stafford move because they're enamored by Rodgers and they want to pay him a little bit less than what Stafford's getting, and they're going to pair him with Davante. Like, we've seen this shit happen already. It's not going to work out, and you're getting rid of a guy who's just better than the guy you're bringing in. And with the ages of both of them, it's not like it's going to be some miracle where, maybe Rodgers goes there and turns back the clock 5 years. Like, it's just not going to happen. He kind of is who he is at this point, and the same can be said about Stafford. I would just prefer Stafford right now.
Well, and you thinking about this from the Rams' perspective, like you might save some money on Rodgers, but you're not going to save money by also bringing in Davante Adams. Like you're probably spending more money actually at that rate. So to them, it's like, do we just clear Stafford's contract and figure it out? Do we trade a first-round pick for Tyson Bagent? what do we do here? So I think the Rams are just better off moving forward and
I did think
clearing.
about what you just said.
I was
they
waiting
want
for
that,
the reaction.
Go for it. You can take them. I'll drive them. Drive them there.
Yeah, they've got some things that they need to figure out this offseason. So last national news, I'm gonna pull up MLB too.
I got it if you want me to lead the way.
Spring training just started. We can dive into the White Sox stuff, but I think it could be fun to maybe predict divisions as we head into this season.
Winners.
Yeah, division winners.
Yeah, before we do that, Juan Soto hit a home run in his first at bat with the Mets. Alex Bregman hit a home run in his second at bat with the Red Sox. So, seen some production out of these big contract guys from this offseason, which is kind of fun.
That Bregman situation's real interesting because of what's his name's comment at third.
Devers.
Yeah.
Saying he plays third base. I feel like he couldn't quite understand what they were asking.
Yeah.
He kind of to me seemed like he was concerned that these people thought he doesn't play third base.
Or that he wasn't going to play at all.
Yeah, I play third base. But we'll see. I mean, Bregman, credit to him, and I kind of figured he would be like this, but he took the 150% professional route where he was after that he was like, you play me wherever. I just want to do what I can to help the team win.
100%. Yeah. And honestly, I was surprised by that because
he's got a good head on his shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, he got a lot of bad media though, when in his time in Houston, and I mean, with the scandal, rightfully so, you could say, but I thought he handled himself pretty well.
He wasn't like Correa, who was just talking out of his behind during that, and I don't know. To be fair too, though, he didn't say Bregman didn't say much about it, but at the end of the day, I feel like that made him look better than someone like Correa, who was talking nonstop during that time. So,
do you want to pick the division winners?
Yep. We'll start with you. Are you looking at it, or do you need me to go through it?
You can just tell me the division. I've got the divisions pulled up, so if you just tell me the divisions, I'm good.
All right, so we'll start with the AL East. So we got the Yankees, Orioles, Red Sox, Rays, and Blue Jays. One of the more competitive divisions in baseball. I'm going to let you pick first. What are you thinking?
This one's really hard, man. And I think it boils down to two teams. You've got the Red Sox, who added some nice pieces, and then obviously the Yankees.
Baltimore's very good too.
Fair. Yeah, shit, you've got three teams. Let me check on Baltimore's. I just want to see Baltimore's pitching staff really quick. Grayson Rodriguez, Zach Eflin, Charlie Morton, Tomoyuki Sugano, and Dean Kramer. I'm going to say, unfortunately, the Yankees because they're pitching staff.
I am actually going to go with Boston for similar reasons. I like the Crochet, Bueller kind of headline in your rotation. I like the addition of Bregman for them as well. I think Boston kind of, I don't want to say quietly because they've made some big moves, right? Like they traded for Garrett Crochet and they signed Alex Bregman, but I feel like not a lot of people are talking about how good of an offseason they had. I like what they did. I like the roster they're building. Let me pull this up too. They're getting
Jarren Duran. He's a nice piece.
Yep, they're getting Lucas Giolito back. He was a decently big addition for them the other year. You got guys like Tanner Houck, who's a good pitcher.
Dude, they've got the best 1-2 punch at closer, like Liam Hendricks and Aroldis Chapman. That's nuts.
I forgot they got Chapman too.
Yeah,
Adam Ottavino. They got some names on here. That's their depth chart, though. I wonder if it's accurate too. Let's see.
Tristan Casas, is that how you say it? Their first baseman.
Yeah,
he's
Casas.
Yeah.
So anyways, not to dive too deep into Boston's roster here, but I just like what they did. They kept a lot of their top prospects, and they have one of the best, if not the best, farm system in baseball. A couple of those guys are close to major league ready, so you'll get some influx to your roster here too to make it even more well-rounded. So I like what they're doing. Playing a tough division though, anyone could win that division out of those three teams, but I like Boston's chances as of today.
Okay. Next one.
AL Central. Cleveland Guardians, Kansas City Royals, Detroit Tigers, and Minnesota Twins.
Well, it's either going to be Cleveland or Detroit. Let me see. Cleveland.
You notice I didn't name one team.
Yeah. Well, they don't stand
I've taken them out of the running. Is spring training's any predictor of how the season's going to go? We're in for a rough one.
I'll say the Tigers. I mean, you've got arguably one of the best pitchers in baseball with Tariq Skubal. They picked up Jack Flaherty. They still have Casey Mize. Jackson Job's another nice pitcher. They went on a little run towards the end of last year, and I think they're going to continue that momentum this year.
The easy choice is Cleveland. They just always kind of seem to win the division. You know, they might not do much during the offseason, or they might get rid of some pieces, but they always just seem to find a way to do it. So with that being said, I'm going to pick the Kansas City Royals. They didn't make a ton of moves this offseason either, but I kind of like the core that they have. Let's take a look at their roster too.
Best shortstop in baseball, dude. What's wild
arguably
is
one of the best players in baseball too.
Yeah. Dude, Hunter Renfroe's listed as their right fielder. That's insane. I didn't even know he was still playing baseball.
Yeah, they traded for Jonathan India. That was kind of their bigger move. Got rid of Brady Singer in the process, but I mean they just got some good like solid players. You know, Pasquantino's turned into a decent player. Perez, as much as I hate him, like still fairly consistent.
Vinny was injured most of last year, though, so we'll have to see if he stays healthy. But, dude, Salvador Perez has had an awesome year last year. I mean, he had 27 bombs, 104 RBIs, hit 270 on the year. Like, for his age, that's really, he's 34 years old. That's really impressive as a catcher, too.
Yep. Their rotation, I mean, Seth Lugo had a really good year last year. We'll see if he's able to replicate that. Cole Reagans was really good. He's fairly young, so that kind of should be like the pitcher that he is, unless, you know, something changes. But, I mean, they got guys like Michael Lorenz in there in their rotation, too. So, got a decent rotation. And I just kind of, I don't know, I like their team. Might get Jack Caglione at some point this year, too.
True.
And if you know me, you know I love Jack, so we'll ride when he comes up.
Yeah, Sox would have gotten him, but he wasn't a left-handed pitcher. All right, next
and
division.
Then he promptly hit a home run against them in spring training the other day.
Yeah, as he should.
Next division, we got the AL West. This one's tough. Houston Astros, Seattle Mariners, Texas Rangers, Oakland, I guess if you want to call them Oakland, Athletics, and the Los Angeles Angels.
This one is hard. I'm going to say Seattle, again, for starting rotation reasons. I actually kind of like the depth chart that the Rangers have put together. You've got Jonah Heim at catcher. Jake Berger's going to play first base. It looks like you've got Marcus Semien at second. Josh Jung, Josh
it's actually pronounced Young.
Josh Young at third. You still got Corey Seager. Wyatt Langford looks like he's going to be a really good player. So, and they got Jock Peterson. So I think the Rangers put together a pretty nice roster, but I think Seattle gets it done.
I'm going with Texas. I just think they're the best team on paper in that division, and got a good manager too, which helps. So I'm going to take the Texas Rangers.
Watch out, though, man. If Arozarena comes back to his old form in Seattle, he's going to be – that's such a nice trade for them.
Yeah, they got some bats in that lineup, but I like Texas a little bit more. Houston's probably going to finally have their fall off. I don't think they're going to do much this year.
I'm curious to see if they try and sell some guys at the deadline too to get some younger pieces, because they're starting to get to the point where like they've got like 2 or 3 really good players, and the rest are just kind of like, we're just putting our roster together. So we'll see.
Yeah. Got another tough one coming up. NL East, we got the Phillies, Braves, Mets, Nationals, and Marlins.
Dude, this might be the hardest division to pick. AL East was tough too. Dude, I want to pick the Mets so badly because of the moves they made this offseason. I'm going to say the Phillies. You can't fight the experience that they've gotten the last like 3 years. I don't think they took any major hits to their roster this offseason, so I'll say the Phillies.
I'm also going to go with the Phillies, just because pitching. Mets were primed to make a very big move for a starting pitcher, and they still haven't yet. And now they have Frankie Montas, who's out with an injury. They had another pitcher who got injured, I think, too. So they're already kind of getting banged up in their rotation, which already wasn't like a massive improvement from what they had. So because of that, I'm going to take... Yeah, Manaya's hurt too. So because of that, I'm going to go with Philly. Experience one, and I like their pitching staff too. I also like Braves pitching staff's usually pretty good. They should be getting Spencer Strider back this year too, but I just don't think they're quite as talented as the Phillies or the Mets. So I think it'll be between those two.
Yeah, I think so.
Next up, we got the NL Central. We got the Brewers, Cubs, Cardinals, Reds, and Pirates.
You're saving your favorite one for last, man. With your favorite team. This one, in my opinion, is down to the Brewers and the Cubs. The Cubs pitching staff, they've got a really nice 1-2 punch with Shota and Justin Steele. I still think they're a couple pieces away from winning their division. So I'm going to say the Brewers. The Brewers picked up Nestor Cortez this offseason, so kind of an under-the-radar move. They always just seem to get it done too, man. Like, I feel like the Brewers are always competitive, and for that reason, I'll just say Milwaukee.
I want to look this up.
I feel like the Pirates and the Cardinals and the Reds are just like stuck in no man's land right now.
I want to find this.
Especially if the Cardinals trade Arenado.
This kind of surprised me when I read this. I don't know why, but in 3 of the last 4 seasons, the Brewers have won the NL Central. I just would have never really guessed that. Like you said, they always just kind of find a way to get it done, and they're just like a pretty good team no matter what.
Yeah, they're the guardians of the NL Central.
But for some reason, I just didn't think they were winning it that frequently. With that being said, I'm going to pick the Cubs to win the Central this year. They had a pretty big offseason. I like some of the additions they made. Kyle Tucker is like one of the most underappreciated players in baseball. He should have a field day hitting at Wrigley for half the year. So I'm going to go with the Cubs. I think they'll be able to get it done this year.
Yeah, you picked them last year too, man. I think a lot lays in the hands of Pete Crow Armstrong, because obviously he was a – shut up, Sean. He was a highly, highly touted prospect, and his bat really never came alive last year. And then the other part that's really crucial for the Cubs is their rotation 3, 4, and 5. You've got Taillon, who had a little bit of a shaky year last year, started out a little rough, and then seemed to piece some nice starts together. Matthew Boyd, and then Javier Assad as their 5th starter. So if those guys are rolling, or even 2 of those 3 guys are rolling, I could see the Cubs winning the division.
Word. I like Justin Steele. He's
he's
solid number 1 for them to have. Cubs got a few good pitching prospects that could be making their way up this year too. They've added some good depth. Michael Busch has kind of found himself there. Recently signed Justin Turner, which didn't make a ton of sense, but he's obviously a good bat to have. So outfield should be fun with Happ, Armstrong / Suzuki and Tucker playing out there. So that leads us to our last division, the NL West. The Dodgers, Padres, Diamondbacks, Giants, and Rockies. Tell me why the Rockies are going to shock the world, Kevin. Convince me.
Dude, unfortunately, I think the Dodgers are going to win this division. But I think what we should do, do you agree with me? Yeah. Okay. So I think what we should do here is pick the next team up, because that makes for a really interesting conversation. You've got the Diamondbacks, who made a very big splash for their rotation and some other under-the-radar moves this year. You've got the Padres, who just always seem to stay relevant somehow, and then you have the Giants, who they could have just a decent roster and they'll be in the run for the playoffs almost every year, it feels. So of those three teams, sorry, Rockies, who do you see as like the runner-up in the NL West?
I got the Giants. I like their addition of Willy Adames. That's a big signing for them. They got a veteran, Justin Verlander, to go in their rotation as well. And they're kind of always a team that's usually pretty good, usually pretty competitive. They got some nice pieces on their roster currently, and being able to add a guy like Adames should make a big difference for them. So probably going to surprise some people. And I also wouldn't be shocked if this wasn't the case, but I'm going to go with the Giants. I just kind of like what they are putting together.
Yeah, they always seem to have it figured out, dude. I think they got one of the Japanese stars, too, one of the outfielders. I'm actually going to say the hometown team. I'm going to say the Diamondbacks. They have really, really, really invested in their rotation heavily, both financially and with prospects. You got Corbin Burns, first and foremost, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Brandon Pfaadt, and then Eduardo Rodriguez, who could have a really nice bounce-back year. Gabriel Moreno, their catcher, I think he's one of the more underrated catchers in baseball. Josh Naylor is a really interesting name at first base. White Sox fans, unfortunately, know him very well. You've got a perennial all-star in Ketel Marte, Eugenio Suarez, and then obviously Corbin Carroll at right field. So I think they did a really nice job putting their roster together. They also signed Trey Mancini, which was really random, but it could be like one of those like
comeback.
Yeah, it could be one of those like nice like playoff move type of things. So I think they did a really nice job. I'll say Diamondbacks are the runner-up in that division.
I think doing some supplementing your roster with good starting pitching is probably the best way you can beat the Dodgers.
It's the only way, dude. Their roster.
It'll be really fascinating watching how Corbin Burns does in that division. It's gonna be fun to watch. Like whenever he gets his first start against the Dodgers and gets to play them quite a bit throughout the years, that'll be fun matchups to see.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's jump over to Chicago topics. Sean, this one's going to be pretty front loaded for you. There's quite a bit of stuff happening on the Blackhawks front, so I'm going to let you take the mic here and talk about what's been going on.
I'm going to take the mic and give it back to you. It's your time. You had to do your homework, and you're up, buddy. No,
I know Seth Jones one's gone, and that's about all I've seen.
It's going to be a busy time, hopefully, for the Blackhawks. Got the trade deadline coming up on March 7th. Biggest piece of news coming from them lately is Seth Jones has come out to the media and said that he would be open to a trade and wants to go to a contending team that is ready to win now. So, that begs the question. Should the Blackhawks trade him by the March 7th deadline? Should they wait till after the season? It's tough because Seth Jones has a pretty big contract attached to him, so not every team is going to be able to take that on. Seth Jones also has very, very mixed results of what people think of him as a player. Some people find him to be very good. Some people don't. He's kind of been hit and miss with the Blackhawks, I feel like. So what should they do? Now, I think when someone goes to the media and says they want to trade, you do what you can to get rid of that guy. That's just not what you want to have around your team. this has taken a turn, and the Blackhawks played the Utah Hockey Club last night, and they lost 2-1. Seth Jones, after the game, to the media, started ripping the Blackhawks, being very critical of their performance. He said something along the lines of, right now we are the same team as we were on day one of the season," which before we go anywhere else with this, I'm going to say this. He's not wrong about that. They just really haven't improved at all. Now, I already was under the whole let's get rid of him now thought, because if you're going to go to the media, talk about how you don't want to be there, like, you're probably just going to be a shithead in the locker room, and you're not going to want to do, like, like, you're just not going to be a good presence. So I think they should get rid of that presence. Now, all of a sudden he wants to run his mouth and be vocal in the locker room after he asked for a trade. Like, he was never doing this crap, like speaking up and being a voice before he wanted to get traded. Now all of a sudden he's just wanting to do this when he's like, maybe half a foot out the door. Like, that kind of pisses me off. And to be honest with you, I think he's tanking his trade value too. Like, just shut your mouth. If you want to get traded, deal with that crap behind closed doors. They'll work something out where they can find a team to take you. Like, it will happen. You don't have to be like so outspoken about the team now because you just don't want to be here anymore. Like, you could have left. You could have put this request in years ago, and you chose not to. So how is anyone going to feel bad for you, Seth? I know I'm not going to.
He's inspired by Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, probably. But
he's taking the same kind of approach.
Yeah, so he's got a handful of years left on his deal. I want to say maybe 5.
Wow.
So the Blackhawks theoretically could retain his contract, trade him, and get a decent package back. I don't know if they'll want to take on 5 years of that contract. So it's kind of tough. I mean, the salary cap's going up, so what Seth Jones makes now isn't going to feel the same a few years from now, but that's still a big ask for like a team like the Hawks to take on that, retain that money for that many years. So
yeah.
I think maybe they'll retain some of it and then try to get what they can for him. He's not going to have much of a market just because of his contract. That's the biggest thing here. I feel like if he gets traded now, it's going to be to Dallas, and that's really the only team I can see him getting traded to now. This offseason, we'll see what happens. Obviously, a lot can change between now and then in terms of what teams have in regards to what they can take on financially. So a lot can change if they keep him, but if they don't, and I don't think they should, I would get rid of him yesterday. I could see him going to Dallas and that being a good fit for him with what he wants and a team that would be able to take on some of that money.
Is there anybody else on the roster that or you could see the Blackhawks trading here anytime soon?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Wow. Ryan Donato's an interesting case. He's been playing really well. He will probably have a lot of teams that are interested in him. He's a 28-year-old forward. He's having a career year. It's his 8th season in the NHL this year. And in 56 games this year, he has 39 points. That's 19 goals and 20 assists. So like I said, a career year for him. At 28 years old, theoretically, he could be someone that the Blackhawks could keep around, and he could be a part of this thing moving forward. With him being 28 and this being a career year for him, I feel like he's probably going to get paid fairly decently. And as much as I'd like to keep him around, I'd rather let some other team do that. Seth Jones and Ryan Donato kind of feel like the last two pieces that the Blackhawks could move to get some future assets. They're obviously so far away from being a contending team. So I think it makes sense to get rid of him. And if someone's gonna overpay for him, let another team do it. So I would deal him at this deadline. But man, this team's gonna look rough here if they end up moving both these guys by March 7th. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I would be under the trade both category. That would be where I stand.
Hey man, at least the Blackhawks know how to tank if so. You know what I mean? Like, you got the other team in the same building, the Bulls, who are just winning games that They don't need to be winning. But anything else Blackhawks talk before we dive into like White Sox and Bears?
Yeah, so just kind of one thing to note, obviously with four nations causing an NHL break. Obviously, NHL affiliates are kind of aligned with the scheduling for the most part, so some affiliates have had their breaks as well. So the Rockford Ice Hogs were off for a little bit, heading into the Four Nations face-off break. So it was while the Hawks were still finishing up that their last few games there. They called up Artem Levshinov while the Ice Hogs were on a break, which was an interesting tactic. When I first saw that they called him up, I was like, really? I did not think that made much sense, but turns out they called him up just so he could practice with the team while Rockford was off, so he was able to be around the team, get in an NHL practice environment. I believe he traveled with the team for games. He did not play in a game, but I think he was with the team for games on the bench and stuff, or at least in the locker room, from what I understand. But the plan was very clearly laid out that he was not going to be playing in any games. So really just gave him the opportunity to be around the big league club more, and to just kind of get some extra work in with some of those guys, which I thought was interesting. He's kind of had a little bit of a mixed bag of a first season, which is to be expected. He's just coming off a year of college hockey. He was playing in a league much lower than that, and he's jumping up to the AHL now. But lately he's been playing much better. Last 11 games, he's got 10 points on 3 goals and 7 assists. Now, he did get a 1-game suspension the other night for a dirty cross-check hit, but based off his reaction, it didn't seem like it was intentional, and he kind of felt bad. But overall, he's just playing really, really good lately, and credit to the Blackhawks for finding an interesting way to keep him involved and get him some solid work in by calling him up and having him practice with the team.
Yeah, that's kind of a cool little loophole. Hang out with everybody but Seth Jones, please. Stay away from him. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Like I said, there was a lot to get into when it came to Blackhawks hockey, and thank God Sean's here, or else you would not want me talking about it because I really wouldn't know where to start. So let's dive into like spring training, but more specifically for the White Sox. I know obviously last year they had the worst record in baseball history. They actually today, I can try and pull up this. Yeah, we know that much. They lost, but we did get to see the first spring training inning for Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith. Both guys looked really, really nice. Noah Schultz only gave up 1 hit over 1 inning. Hagen Smith only gave up 1 hit, 1 walk, but he had 3 strikeouts. And Hagen Smith looked straight up nasty in his inning today. So it's, in my opinion, I think it's going to be another rough year. I think we're going to have 100 losses, or we're going to be like somewhere on the fence of 100 losses. But I think this is the year that we start to see a lot of these younger guys, Colson Montgomery, maybe Braden Montgomery, see some of the younger guys actually get some playing time, and we can get eyeballs on them as in terms of like what they're able to do at the big league level.
Yeah, I did get a chance to watch the starts today. Noah Schultz was battling what sounded like a little bit of an illness, and still went out there and was really efficient, throwing a lot of strikes. Gave up a base hit, or it was an error, I can't remember, and then immediately eliminated that threat with a double play, which was nice to see. Hagen Smith got into some trouble, had runner on first and third with 1 out or no outs, and got a few strikeouts to get out of that. So it was good to see him kind of work through that. I think Smith ended up throwing about 20 plus pitches in the inning, but and Schultz threw I think like 12. So a couple different types of innings there, but nonetheless good results for both of them. So that was fun to see. But going back to the White Sox this year, I mean, really kind of you touched on it. I think my main theme for them is just going to be let the kids play. Like, let's see what we got for a lot of these young guys. Team's not going to be good. Very, very, very strong chance that the White Sox could end up with the first pick in next year's draft. That wouldn't surprise anybody. So, let's see what we got moving forward. Who's going to be a part of this thing, or who's going to get extended looks as we kind of keep working through this rebuild here. That's kind of what I'm looking for. And, the losses are going to get exhausting and going to get old, but, if they're at least bringing up guys who might mean something to this team down the line, then, hey, I can get behind that and I can watch that, So, we should be able to see guys like Noah Schultz and guys like Hagen Smith get a chance this year. We should see like the guys like Sean Burke break out of spring training and be a part of the rotation, because why not, So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for. Colson
Kyle
Montgomery's
Teal.
another one. Yeah, Colson Montgomery, kind of been a little bit of a mixed bag with him for spring training so far. He had a home run in his first game, and I don't know if he's had a hit since, but no one from shortstop is playing very good right now. But if he ends up being the best one or the best looking one in spring training, then whatever. Like, let's let him be the opening day shortstop. Like,
Yeah.
he matters more than Jacob Amaya does. Sorry if you're listening to this, Jacob Amaya, but it's the truth. Like, would he maybe be a little rushed at that point? Maybe, but he's got to get there eventually. Reward him for having a good spring training if that's the case, So just looking forward to hopefully seeing a lot of young guys and being able to start, this sickening process again where we're like, okay, who's going to be a part of our rotation down the line? Who's going to be, in our lineup in 5 years, and kind of doing that all over again. But hopefully this time it works out better.
Yeah, you can hope, man. I know recently, like right before spring training started, there were some rumblings about Luis Robert potentially being traded to the Reds. Obviously, that didn't happen. Do you think the Sox are going to trade him this year? Do you agree with it? If so,
Yeah, I do. I think that they were very far down the line in talks for trading him heading into spring training, and Chris Getz is pretty, like, he knows what he has with this team right now, and I guess if Luis Robert goes back to his old form of a perennial all-star and a guy that can play gold glove defense in center field, should net you a lot to return. Like, this could hopefully be the last big move for Chris Getz to really be able to put his fingerprint and get this farm system just flooded with lots of top talent. So I think it makes sense from an organizational perspective. But Luis Robert, too, has been very big on wanting to stay with the White Sox. He said that a few times about how he would love to spend his career here. And if he wants to, he's at the age where he could be a part of this thing down the line. And if we end up keeping him and he's part of this thing, like, hey, ain't nothing wrong with that too. As long as he's healthy. Because if he's not, then that's unfortunate. But I don't know. I think it makes sense. And, if I were Getz, I'd probably pull the trigger on that if I could.
I'll argue the other case. I think it would be really beneficial for the Sox to keep him because he's a really good player for these younger prospects to learn from. You've never seen Luis Robert give up on a ball. You've never seen Luis Robert play lazy baseball. Now, you could argue his swing selection sometimes, especially last season, probably not the best, but you've got a new coaching staff. You've got all these young prospects that could sit back and watch and learn from Luis Robert, and I think that that's very valuable for where we're at right now. Now, if a team's calling and they're offering you the sun, the moon, and the stars, do it. Fine. Sure. But I think that there's a lot of value in a lot of these players learning from a guy like Luis Robert. So I'll argue that they should keep him. Anything else White Sox related before we jump to some Bears notes?
Buckle up. This season's going to suck.
Yeah, that's about it. You'll hear a lot of that this season. It's mainly just going to be heavy on the prospects talk. All right, then let's talk Bears. And there's not a lot to talk about here. Ryan Poles just recently had a press conference right before it was technically at the Combine, but before the Combine started. I think it actually kicks off tomorrow. It's televised, and Friday it's televised. But he had a press conference, and to sum it up, it wasn't very long. He mentioned that the Bears plan to be very aggressive this year in the offseason, which they haven't said in the past. So that's good to hear. He talked about the recent waiver moves, one of them being Gerald Everett, and then the other one was a defensive lineman, DeMarcus Walker. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, DeMarcus Walker. He said the reason those guys were let go is they just didn't fit the scheme moving forward. And let's be honest, the Bears are saving some money there. I think they got another $10 million between the two. So I like that he addressed that and didn't just kind of beat around a bush of just like, we decided to go in another direction. It seems like Ben Johnson has had a big effect on the Bears' approach, not only with like coaches and day-to-day, but also like shaping the roster, which is big because a lot of times in the past, Ryan Poles was just the one that kind of took reins on that and is like, I'm going to build the roster and the coach is going to coach. So I love seeing that, Ben Johnson's having an effect on their approach with who they're bringing in, who they're getting rid of, and what players are going to fit what schemes. And then finally, he talked about the fact that, no surprise here, offensive line is going to be a big focus this offseason. I know there was an offensive lineman that was just either released today or mentioned he wanted to be traded, that a lot of people were linking the Bears to. So I think there's going to be a lot of names to consider leading up to the draft and especially after the draft. So I just hope the Bears tackle it in the most sensible way possible, whether that means throwing money at Trey Smith or if the money gets to be ridiculous, find a trade partner for another guy. Anything else you notice on the Ryan Poles press conference? I know you said you didn't get a chance to listen to it, but did you see or hear anything that you wanted to add?
Okay. Not a thing. This is all you.
Okay. Last thing, and I'm going to end this on a funny note. So last year they had, I think it was last year, maybe a couple of years back, they had Matt Eberflus on PMT, Barstool guys. Barstool Big Cat had Matt Eberflus on PMT. And they asked him, are you a dog guy or a cat guy? And he said a cat guy. And as a matter of fact, I have a couple. Fast forward to this week, they brought in Ben Johnson, and he was on PMT. And they asked him the same question. They go, are you a dog guy or a cat guy? And he goes, oh, I'm a dog guy. And Barstool Big Cat was like, oh, thank God. Like, that makes me feel better. But the funny part about this conversation is he asked Ben Johnson the same question that he asked other people in the past. And he said, if you could guarantee, I think he said like sometime in the next 10 years, the Bears were going to win, like, let's say 2 Super Bowls, but somebody had to die for the Bears to win 2 Super Bowls, would you do it? And Ben Johnson came back. This dude is a savage. You have to watch the clip. Ben Johnson came back and he goes, yes, but I don't want somebody to die. He's like, can I just like give up a body part instead? And Big Cat was like, yeah, what are you going to give up? Like your arm, your leg, whatever. And he goes, well, me and my wife are done having kids, so can I give up my testicles? And he literally said that on air. And I'm like, that's my coach right there. I love that. So Ben Johnson willing to give up his testicles for a Super Bowl. Let's ride, baby.
Print the shirts.
That's what I'm saying, dude. I love that he went there. He seems to have a good sense of humor. Obviously, he's a very intelligent guy, but I like that he likes to have fun with it too. So that's it, guys. That's all we got for today's episode. Usually 15 minutes, 20 minutes shorter than previous episodes. We did good today. But thanks again for tuning in. We'll see y'all next week, and you guys take care.